My name is Chris Knowlton, as you heard. I'm with Wowza Media Systems. And our company got started actually when our founders in 2005 thought they wanted to start a new business. And they weren't really sure this is not mine, I just want you to realize that. They wanted to get into video. They thought it was emerging, and they thought it'd be really interesting. So they started a video blogging business. And they found while they were trying to build out the business that they couldn't find a media server on the market that met their needs. They couldn't find one that was scalable, reliable, and flexible enough. And so as part of the business, they developed their own media server. And then they went out to trade shows, and people kept coming to them and saying, yeah, I don't care about the video blogging, but what server are you using? Because I want that. And so they did a pivot, and they started a new business around something called Wowza Media Server. And so it's been on the market since it actually went out in pre-production in 2006. By the time it launched in February 2007, had 1,000 users on it already. We now have folks in over 150 countries using it, and it's arguably now the most widely used streaming media server in the world. And, oh, there we go. Yeah. That's good. And so it's used for a lot of things. One of the nice things about it is that it's been in the market, as I mentioned, since early 2007. Every year it has won multiple awards, both Reader's Choice Awards and Editor's Choice Awards for innovation and for support. And one of the nice things about it, I guess, is when it came to market, what it was really competing with a lot was Flash Media Server, Windows Media Server, then IIS Media Services, and Real Networks. And eventually, all of those have pretty much either gone away or changed their focus. So like Microsoft's no longer shipping media server software, Real Networks is not, and Adobe's focused on their OTT, or their TV Everywhere offering through Primetime. And so we came to the market with something that supported multiple protocols, multiple ways of streaming, so not just Windows Media or just IIS Media or Real Streaming, but combination of all of those. Basically, you could take a single workflow with Wowza Media Server and replace multiple parallel workflows that you had with all these other technologies. And some of those other technologies were obviously based on using a certain operating system. Another thing that Wowza has done is based the server on based its ability to run not on any single operating system, but on multiple. So to run on almost any machine you have. So it makes it very flexible. It's made it very attractive to a lot of folks. It was originally aimed at developers and folks who were streaming media professionals. And over time, what we've tried to do is continue to simplify streaming, not only by offering multiple formats in a single product, and the ability to ingest from almost any encoder and deliver to almost any screen on the planet, but to do it in a simpler way and to make it easier and easier, lowering the bar to get involved in streaming and not having to be so technically literate to get started. So let's see, what did I miss? Anything? We're growing fast, lots of awards. Okay, good, move on. So this is, for those of you who might have heard of Wowza Media Server originally, it's now actually called Wowza Streaming Engine. We changed the name last year, and we released a user interface for it. Before then, it was all about XML and command line, which is great for a lot of you. For a lot of folks, it was a little bit intimidating. So we put a nice wrapper around it, web-based UI, so that even from your Android phone, your tablet, your desktop, wherever you are, you can control your server just by going into a web browser to a URL. Let's see, did I miss anything? I did mention the multiple formats, the idea that you can stream in multiple formats, not just a single one. You can do smooth streaming, you can do HTTP dynamic streaming, Adobe's adaptive streaming format, or as well as RTMP and RTSP. How many here actually know what I'm talking about when I mention these acronyms? Okay, a few of you, excellent. Let me just put it this way. No matter what device you have, an iPhone, an Android, a Windows phone, a television, a set-top box, Wowza Streaming Engine can put out a stream in a format that those devices will be able to play back from. So you no longer have to have multiple sets of technologies to hit all those endpoints. So who uses Wowza is a question I get asked. Usually the question I ask back is who doesn't use Wowza? And the reason, and what I mean by that is that there are almost no streaming scenarios that you can think of where Wowza is not being used today, from over-the-top scenarios that you see over in the lower right there, to live events, to inside enterprises and universities, for surveillance capabilities, as well as sort of planes, trains, automobiles, and cruise ships for folks who are putting in their own on-demand delivery service. And increasingly, not just because they're going to a fixed television mounted to a wall, but because folks in the hospitality business are finding that if somebody brings their favorite tablet with them, they want to go around the cruise ship and watch their content no matter where they are. And Wowza can stream to all of them and give folks that great experience no matter where they are in that cruise ship, as it were. It's also used for, we don't really address it here, but it's also used for things like real-time video conferencing. So a lot of folks have built online video platforms around that capability to deliver content and have video chat and conversations using Wowza streaming engine. So here is sort of the marketecture slide for how Wowza works. In one side, you see in the upper left, the input and publishing. And what it's showing is that we can take an input from almost any source, whether it be a camera that can put out an IP stream, an IP camera or a network camera, whether it be content that you're pulling from a drive somewhere, say Google Storage, whether it's internet radio, or even just, you can pick up an iPhone and run a free app that we'll provide you called Wowza Go Coder on it, and you can hold it up and point it at something that's happening, it's exciting, and you can stream it out to the world. And we can do that from almost any encoder just because we support so many incoming protocols. So once it gets to Wowza streaming engine, which is just a piece of software that runs either on premises or in the cloud, and what we really want to talk today about is the cloud, and how it runs very well on Google Compute Engine. Once we get it, we can take that one stream coming in, and typically what we recommend is people send us one HD stream, if it's a live event, and we will take it and we can transcode it and transrate it, which means we can take in one HD stream and then make different incremental streams that can be used for what's called adaptive streaming. So if you've ever watched Netflix or Hulu and noticed that every once in a while it'll get a little fuzzy and then it'll snap back and be sharp again, but you never see the word buffering, it's because a few years ago adaptive streaming came onto the market, about 2008. And it allows you to your player to automatically adjust as your bandwidth adjusts, or as what you're doing on your device changes. Maybe you've got more load going and your CPU is getting bogged down a little bit. It'll adjust to a lower stream, one that's easier for it to play back or to pull across the network. And it will allow you to play back with a seamless experience, or maybe you just get a little bit of fuzziness for a couple of seconds, but it keeps on going. You don't have to wait for a buffering symbol. And so that's what adaptive bitrate streaming is all about. And Wowza streaming engine allows you to bring in a single stream and create these multiple streams needed for adaptive bitrate streaming. And that's its probably most popular use today, although it's still really used a lot for both RTMP, traditionally flash streaming, and RTSP streaming, which is an even older version of streaming, a traditional stateful streaming protocol used by many legacy devices, especially in emerging markets now. And then when it goes out, as I mentioned, it can go out in many different streaming formats, and it can go to almost any player. You can pick a player. You can send it to a built-in player on an iPhone or an Android device. You can pick a player like JW Player or Flow Player that plays back almost across any device and any screen. It makes it even simpler because they help you customize the player and everything so that you have this really great experience that's customized for your content and your delivery for your end users. Other things that we can do, just in case it's interesting to you, we can also do things like closed captioning, kind of a key requirement for the FCC these days. Lots of API extensibility here, so anything that you can do through the UI or through the command line, you can also do directly through the API. So you can actually build this into an offering that you have, completely transparent to your end user that you're using this product, and deliver the content to them. And then we have a couple of other things that used to be called premium add-ons. Now they're just part of the base price of the product, which is $65 a month for the software. I mentioned the transcoding earlier, that capability to bring in the content, not only split it up into different bit rates, but also bring in content that maybe was encoded on an older encoder, change the codec, the way it's compressed, and then spit it out as multiple versions and in multiple formats. We also have DRM capabilities, so obviously for a lot of you, if you're delivering studio content, you need to have that content protected all the way across. So Wowza streaming engine can take in protected content unprotect it, decrypt it, and then send it out to all those different devices in multiple formats, encrypted and protected in multiple ways. And we have built-in integration with 3 DRM service providers, and it also works across some very wide DRM platforms if you want to do a little work on your own. And then the last thing is network DVR in DVR, that capability to pause a live stream or jump ahead or jump back in the stream that you get and have been able to get for a number of years with set-top boxes and TiVo. All right, so a typical workflow to sort of take what I just showed you there is, for a live event anyways, you have some kind of camera, you have some live event, maybe you have multiple cameras, like we have today. There are actually multiple cameras in the room today capturing this event. And if we were streaming live, and next time I hope we're streaming live with Wowza and Google, you would actually pull in those multiple streams and you can mix them in real time in something like, you can either just pull it into a single encoder or you can bring it into a encoding product such as Telestream Wirecast or NewTek TriCaster, if you've heard of those. Bring in multiple streams and do live mixing of those streams and switching shots and putting on overlays and titles. So that's probably what you would do at a venue. So a lot of folks use Wowza streaming engine when they're at a live event, a football game, a house of worship service, a live concert, an event like this even. And they capture this event and then they send out one single stream that's been compressed with the H.264 video codec and AAC audio codec, and they'll send that to a Wowza streaming engine in the cloud. And there we'll do all that transrating, the creating of the multiple bitrate files or streams, and we'll repackage it into those multiple formats that I talked about, smooth streaming, HLS, HDS, and then we'll publish it. And you can actually publish directly from Google Compute Engine instances right to a bunch of end users who are on their phones, whether they happen to be streaming in emerging markets over these traditional streaming protocols that I mentioned, RTMP and RTSP, or you can publish directly out to a CDN such as Fastly, which does a great job of scaling out all HTTP type streaming. So you get that great adaptive bitrate streaming, plus you get global scalability. And then you hit any screen that's out there, because there are enough players out there that will allow you to deliver to any screen in the world just using 1 or 2 formats, such as Apple HLS. So why do we use Google? We actually started using Google, I'm going to jump ahead. We started using Google 2 years ago because we saw some things in Google Cloud Platform that we were not seeing with some other cloud providers that we've been testing on. The first thing is that the startup speed was much faster. This is to some extent, this is a lot of anecdotal as opposed to performance testing, but our engineers realized that the startup speed was about twice as fast as what we were getting on other platforms. From a storage performance perspective, the I/O was much better. We were able to move data in and off, in and out of drives and on disk and back very quickly, which can be really critical if you're pulling in a live stream and recording it in live time and in real time, and then delivering it out, especially with that network DVR capability. And then you want to pull it out later so that you can have this archive file that you play back on demand. We also found that with some cloud platforms we've been using, customers were finding that their experience was inconsistent. So they would be running our server on a cloud platform, and they would find that it would not always be a consistent behavior. And sometimes they might be able to support 500 concurrent connections, and other times it was 1,000, and it seemed to be a bandwidth limitation where perhaps too many people were sharing the same network pipe. We don't see those problems at all with Google Cloud. And then from a pricing perspective, it was attractive not only for us, but for our customers who are just running Wowza streaming engine on Google, because they could not only, as it was mentioned earlier, not only do you get the sustained use pricing, where the longer you use it, the more the pricing drops, but also for those folks who are running sort of the short-term events or the bursty traffic, and they wanted to be able to just pay for what they use, the 23 minutes, not the full hour. And the final thing that we like is that when we're creating an image, we don't have to create an image for each region, as you might have to do on some other platforms. Made it very easy. We create a single image, we populate it out there, put it in a storage bucket, and everyone can get to it, and we don't have to create multiple versions just specific for a region. So what's coming next? I'm showing here on one side the steps that it takes to get started with Wowza streaming engine on Google Compute. And And it's not very difficult, right? There are a number of steps that you have to go through, but if you want to do this on a regular basis, this might get a little bit, you might get a little tedious if you had to do it all the time and with multiple instances. So there's certainly a much easier way to do it, and that's using click to deploy. So we'll be able to soon, I'm hoping that we're going to be able to offer the first commercial click to deploy offering. Today, if you go to the Google Cloud site, you will find that there are a bunch of click to deploy offerings out there, all open source, where you can go and very quickly click on an offering and make a couple of configuration settings and then launch it. And it just saves a whole lot of steps in configuration. And we're going to be offering that. You'll also be able very soon to start doing things where you take a whole bunch of resources in a similar way. You can say, I want to fire up 3 instances, I want to use this storage, I want to push it to Fastly, and you can do it all through essentially one configuration script. You'll be able to do that very soon too, so that once you have your settings the way you want them, you can just fire it off the same way every time. Speaking of Fastly, we're also going to be offering Fastly integration soon. So today you can do it. There are a few steps involved. We're going to make it a lot easier. The simple way is, there are 2 ways you can do it really. The first way is if you have a live stream, you can push it to a storage bucket. It makes it very easy. And then Fastly just picks it up from there and distributes globally. We also have very low latency connections because Fastly is co-located where, or has the interconnects where Google Cloud Platform is located. So the connections there are really low latency, which is very good for us as far as getting content to your users faster. So the TV, they don't hear the cheer on the TV, several seconds before they see it on their device. And then the last thing is if you're doing on-demand streaming and you're pulling the content off of a Google Compute Engine instance, using Fastly as your distribution mechanism, as Simon mentioned earlier, they have the origin shield capability, which protects the origin from getting too many requests at once from all those edge nodes that Fastly runs. They just have a single request come back all the time and then feed all those nodes. And so that workflow that I showed you earlier would look like this when you put Fastly in the middle. So that's it. If you have questions, we'll have Q&A later. I'll be happy to answer then. And of course, I'll stick around also as well if you have other questions, or feel free to email.